Welcome back for another lesson. Today we actually get to start playing some music. And what I'm going to start with is showing you how the chords work. We're going to work with the key of C because that's where I like people to start. Most harps that I make and many that you buy don't have any of the sharpening levers, and so they would be tuned into the key of C. Now the only difference between if you don't have levers, remember we tuned the B to B flat since I have the lever, and so now I'm going to make it a B natural so that all of the notes are natural notes. So essentially what you're playing with is the same thing as the white keys on the piano. So what we have is in the key of C major, which we're going to play today, we have 3 chords that are major chords, and then we have 3 chords that are minor chords, and there's 1 chord left. It's a suspended chord, and we can use it for things that help embellish music. We'll talk with that in one of the lessons down the road. We're going to kind of ignore it today, but here's the 3 major chords we have. First of all, we're in the key of C, so we're going to have the C major chord. What we do is we start with the C note. I put white behind so that hopefully the strings will show up a little bit better. We start out with the C note. That is the main note of the C major cluster. Let's call it a cluster, chord cluster. And so we'll start with the C, we'll skip a string, and then we'll have the, so that's C, D, E will be the next one we play, skip the F, and play the G. So it'll sound like this. And if you played them all together, it would sound like this. Okay, and so if you were playing that on the piano, that would be it would be the same thing, C, E, G. And those are the 3 notes of the C chord. That is a C major. Now, with most songs that you're going to hear or play, there's going to be 3 major chords in. They're going to use all 3 of the major chords. The other 2 major chords are the F chord, which starts with the F note, or we can start up here. So F, skip a string, A, so F, G, A, B, C. So, okay. So now we have the F chord played together. And the next major chord is 1 up from that. That's the G major. And we'll skip the A now and play the B, skip the C and play the D. So, okay? So now we have the 3 major chords, C, F, G, and then back to C. And most chords, most songs that you will hear, at least the simpler songs, are going to have those 3 major chords in it, and they'll rotate around in what we call a chord progression, and that's how the song is built. So I can even do a little demonstration. We can do like Twinkle Twinkle Little Star here. So you can see that I'm playing the chords along with the melody. A couple mistakes in there, but we'll let that go. Anyway, so that's how most music is based. Most music has a melody line, and then it has the chords. Okay? And all kinds of variations come off of that when you're playing music. But that's essentially how music works. A melody and chords. So I like to call the right hand my melody hand and my left hand my chord hand. And as we go on, you'll see how that develops. It's just the same thing with the piano. You have your chords and you have your melody. And it's real interesting. I tell a lot of people, if they've been playing the keyboard, you essentially have the same hands doing the same thing. With the piano or keyboard, you're horizontally in front of you. With the harp, you're going to change that 90 degrees and bring it into vertically in front of you. And so now your left hand, which was over here, comes down to the bass notes for the chords, and your right hand, which was over here playing the melody, comes up high to play the melody up here on the harp. Now this brings me to another point. I had one of my students that I was working with ask me, well, I'm left-handed, I want to play the harp this way. And we tried working with that a little bit. Essentially you can do it, but it's kind of like the keyboard. They don't make left-handed pianos and right-handed pianos. I recommend that you get used to working with the harp in this fashion. One of the main reasons why is because your eyesight is looking very much much easier to look at the strings from this side than it is from the other side. As well as harps, normally with the neck, it's closer to this side, and so you have a lot less room on this side as you have more room on this side. Several reasons. I know some people have worked out playing left-handed guitars and other things, and I suppose if you really want to go for it, you could try it, but I really highly recommend that you stay with the convention of keeping the harp on your right shoulder, melody with your right hand, chording with your left hand. That's just, I believe over time you're going to find that's going to work the best. So that's my recommendation to you. So anyway, we have the major chords, C, F, and G. Okay? Now, there's 3 minor chords that come along with the C major cluster. And I like to call it a cluster because it's a relationship of all the chords together. And once we learn that cluster, we're going to be able to take it and put it into other keys and keep the same finger positions and same spacings, just moving up or down the strings. So once you learn the C major cluster, it's going to be real easy to transpose music into other keys just by moving your hands up or down. And we'll be talking about that in lessons to come. So anyway, what are the minor chords? Well, let's start out with the D minor. So what we would do is we would start with the D note, C note, D, okay? The C note is red, D. And so then we'll do the same thing. We'll play a note, skip a note, play a note, skip. So we have D, F, and A, okay? Okay, that's D minor. There's a lot of really neat songs that play in the D minor, so it's a neat chord to really get used to. A minor is another one, so we'll start out with the A note up here or down here. And so we'll start with the A, skip the B, play the C, skip the D, and play the E. So here we go. So now you can hear the difference between a major note. Here's the C major. It sounds solid. Minor sounds kind of, oh, you almost want to cry. No, anyway. But interestingly, a lot of music that brings emotions out goes into minors. So minors are very useful for setting moods. So a lot of times when I'm playing behind Shirley's stories and the music and the storyline goes into something that's tense or something's developing, a minor key is a really good key to play in. So anyway, okay, what's the other minor? It's the E minor. So we'll start with the E, skip the F, G, skip the A, and play the B. So here we go. Okay. So there's the E minor. Now, some of you are already asking, I'm sure, well, what about the C seventh or the D seventh or the G seventh or the what's the other? There's a couple other different chords, and what they are is slight variations. But as you're playing the music, you'll hear that a lot of times where you'll play normally a D7, if you play the D minor, it works, and you have to really listen very carefully to even tell the difference. And so a lot of times it's very easy to work around if you're playing by sheet music and it has the chords up there and it calls for let's just use the D7th as an example, you'll find that if you play the D minor, it's going to sound just as well. So anyway, so there's our basic 3 major chords and 3 minor chords. Now I will just show you, just so you, because everybody's going to ask, well, what about the B? What do you do with the B? Well, let's play that B in the thirds like we just have demonstrated with all the other notes, and see what it sounds like. That sounds kind of funny, doesn't it? What a lot of people say, and I think it's true, it sounds unresolved. You can't just sit there. You can't just play that chord and let it hang. You got to play it, and then you have to resolve it. So by playing the C chord right next to the B, you play it sets up a tension, and then you relieve the tension by playing the C. And there's a lot of music that uses that to set up. And also we'll use it down there, and we'll talk about this down the road as well, but I'll just show you real quickly. Sometimes we'll use it in what I call a walk down, and we'll go. So we used the chord, the B suspended chord, but we didn't just stay there, we were headed somewhere with it. So that's just to remember that chord does exist, but we're going to use it very selectively. Okay. So there's our basic chords. So what are we going to do with those chords? The first thing that I've been showing you is that we're playing triad. 3, triad. Now notice and once again my fingering is terrible. But just develop something that's comfortable. Notice my fingers don't move a lot. I'm using 3 different fingers to play these notes, and so my hand doesn't move a lot. I don't move all over the keyboard. So by using the same fingers, I can keep that spacing pretty well. Like I said, you develop the neuron memories that keep your fingers spaced the right way to hit the right strings. And so by working on that kind of fingering, so that's something, for you to, I don't like to use the word practice, but that's something to spend time on so that you can start developing that memory with your hand, so that you have that triad spacing in your. Later on we're going to go to what we can do with those chords. We can make rhythms, we can extend the chord all the way out. That's called an arpeggio. Okay, so we'll do things like that with the chord down the road. I'm not going to get into that today, but I just want you to start getting used to playing a chord with 3 fingers on 3 strings. Okay? D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, and then here's that B suspended. So we'll have to come on up to C to finish it. Okay. Now, let's go back to that. Let's do this little Twinkle Twinkle Little Star again, just for demonstration. Now, I'm going to be putting a little rhythm in here with this, so just to give you an idea of where we're going to go with this. But don't get confused by it. First of all, if you're hearing a song, you want to be able to pick out the melody, and that's the first thing you want to work on. You're hearing a song in your head, you can just stick with Mary Had a Little Lamb, Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, You know, Are You Sleeping, Brother John? Simple little songs like that. And I'll demonstrate each one of them here. Now at first you're just going to be mostly using your index finger to be playing with. Later on you'll be starting to add other fingers into your melody. But first of all, just to pick out the simple melody, you'll just and then okay, now you've got your melody down, and keep playing your melody until you feel very confident with it, just like what I just played, so you don't have to make any mistakes on it. And then the next thing to start adding in is going to be the chord. Now the one thing you can do is just once, you know, now let me just say this. You may want to work with your melody with this hand for a little bit, and then come and work with doing some chords with this hand. And even pluck them together. Okay? Get comfortable with that. Don't try to do both of your hands together to start with. You want to do them separately to start with, just so you can get some confidence up. And then somewhere along the way, as you start to feel comfortable with what your melody's doing, start adding in the chord here a little bit. Oops. Okay, that's basic. Later on we'll get fancy, we'll go. So you can, you know, obviously you can go, maybe I'm showing off a little bit, but anyway, just having fun. And that's what I want you to do. I want you to have fun. And so when you're playing with this music, have some fun with it. Don't think that you have to sit down and play exactly like I do. Play what you're hearing. Okay, so that's Twinkle Twinkle. We could do now an easy one is Frere Jacques, or Are You Sleeping? Now that's a really interesting song because you really don't have to change the chord at all. You can stay on the C chord and play the whole song with the C chord, and it sounds pretty good. Now you could play some other chords in there, but we won't go into that today. That might be a little song that you want to work on, first of all, just to start getting your hands working together. You know, we have Mary Had a Little Lamb. Okay, so that's another real simple little tune that you can work on. Now, notice, you know, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this today because we have a whole nother lesson we'll be doing this with. But notice that you can, as you start getting confidence, you can start bringing that rhythm in. And that's a fairly simple song. It only has 2 chords working on it. Now, the other thing that I will say is that a lot of places, music stores and stuff, have music that already has chords written above the words, and so you can get some of that music and start working on following those chords with playing that music. So anyway, that's another. Now you can also go to on the web, and you can look up harp music or harp sheet music, and I have found site after site after site that has tons of sheet music. Now I will just interject here something that could really help you in starting to work on your chords is on my website, calmingharp.com, calmingharp.com. I have a page called Music of the Psalms, and I have been taking chord progressions from the Hebrew Psalms and bringing them across into sheet music that you can play chord to chord to chord. You may want to, and most of these are in the C major. I'm trying to keep it in the C major cluster. Some of them I think I have started working with the B by putting the B flat down. If you wanted to work with those and don't have the sharpening levers, just remember to tune the B to a B flat. That's all you would have to do. But if it says C, then you play the C chord. It says G, play the G chord. A, B flat, C, F. So you could begin to download some of that music off my website and print it out, and you can start using that as just a nice little something to follow, something to just that you can read G, C. You know, you just start reading the notes and playing them and getting used to doing that. So that's just another idea for you. Not that you have to do that. I'm working with bringing music out of the Psalms, and there's some really neat things happening. It's my hope that many of you will join me down the road as we continue to look into ways that David may have written his songs. Now, I'm also just going to show you just a couple of 3-4 different ways to play a chord. I'm not going to play music along with it. I just want to I might just give you a slight demonstration. But anyway, I want you to start getting ideas of different things that you could do with the music. First thing is, if you're playing a song, Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, you could just play the bottom note. That'd be F chord, C chord, G, C. So you can just play that that would be a real simple way to start getting your hands working together. And then another way is you could do the top and bottom. Another way I've already showed you is just the full. Okay, so we've already got that down. Another thing that you could do we've talked about the rhythm. Here's another thing that's kind of fun to do. You can even kind of make up music by just staying on one chord and using it like a drone, kind of like a bagpipe or Aeolian pipe or something like that. But one of the songs I recorded, I call it Smoky Mountain Tune. So that's just one chord playing all the time, and it's acting like a drone for the melody that you're playing. And some music sets itself up really well to that. It's kind of the same results as you get when you're playing the mountain dulcimer, the one that's on your lap, kind of an hourglass-shaped instrument. That's based on the same thing, as you're using one string for your tune that you're changing the notes, but the other 2 or 3, depending on how it's set up, are just playing the same drum.